Welcome back to On the Bus Podcast, the outer spaces, the universes, the Milky Way's greatest podcast in 2019, ranked and reviewed. I believe it. I know so. Welcome back on the bus, everybody. Wishing everybody Happy New Year, or whenever you're hearing this or listening to this, whether it's in 2052, whether it's next week or next month. Happy New Year. Wishing everybody the best. Thank you guys so much for tuning into On the Bus Podcast. We keep the shows coming. We keep them cranking. We're going to keep adventuring, and we're going to keep living our greatest experience ever. With this bus, I'm taking it wherever, whenever we plan on gliding and cruising this part of the world with us. Daniel and I are actually in Los Angeles now. The bus is out west. Hashtag West. We're out here connecting, collaborating. Got plenty of new adventures coming. Got plenty of podcasts coming. However, we can't connect, we can't collaborate with everybody. So hit us up on the bus podcast at gmail.com, Brandon at onthebuspoductions.com, everything on social media. Check out our videos. Let's find ways to work, connect, and collab together this year. Now, let's just go right into it. Let's just get this show on the road. Let's go into who we got on the show today. We got Travis Statham, carnivore. Yeah, carnivore. Guy eats only meat. And how did he get to this point with eating meat? He started off with, of course, lo and behold, the diet that you've heard us talk about before, the ketogenic diet. That's a diet that's primarily high in fat. We're talking 70% of your diet is coming from fat products in your macronutrients consisting of carbohydrates, fat, and protein. Now, once you get into a ketogenic state, your body starts producing ketones, and you are switching over your body's main primary fuel and energy source instead of glucose, which is sugar. Travis is the moderator of Zero-Carb, Ketoscience, and World Carnivore Tribe on Reddit and on Facebook. Now, there's not much research out there on the long-term effects of the carnivore diet. There is some. However, the Ketoscience group on Reddit is one of the best places to go and pick up some knowledge and connect with people and have conversations, debates about what it is, how this diet can work, how it can work best for you, and what are some of the benefits and negatives that are hurting, affecting, and really helping people. There's been some really interesting things with the carnivore diet, really amplifying and assisting people that have very negative effects from autoimmune diseases. We're talking Hashimoto's, people who have allergic reactions from very generic and basic food types. And the carnivore diet's been really helping. On the episode, we talk about the benefits of the carnivore diet, what it brings to the table, the kinds of diseases that zero-carb is curing, and we go into the depth of history and science of, diets, food, veganism, vegetarianism, the U.S. diet, and, is this a thought? Is this a mentality? Is this a real concept? We've only been really eating these ways for the past, 100 years in our societies and civilizations. I mean, this is really just unique to the West, too. So it's a really deep, insightful podcast on food, how we eat, and why we eat. So let's get into the episode. Episode 83, baby. We're churning.
So you're the moderator for Zero Carb and for Ketoscience on Reddit.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is I was active on those forums maybe 2 years ago. How long have they been around?
I think Ketoscience has been around like 5 to 7 years. Zero carb. So they're probably no one knew about zero carb that much.
I was on there. I was trying to learn and read. And then me and him go on this trip to South America.
Yeah.
We're gone for 10, 11 months. And I'd never met anyone who even knew about them. And I come back and all of a sudden it's being talked about in podcasts and media. And it's like zero carb is blowing up.
I attribute all of it to Sean Baker, honestly. There's actually been a lot of long-term vets that have been doing zero carb for 5 to 10 to 20 years. But they've been very media shy, and I think they've been scared away by vegans and people that just don't want to hear that you only eat meat. So they've been very hidden for the most part, and only in the last 18 months has just one doctor who's just being really loud. He goes on Instagram every day and does live videos and tweets and just uses social media, and you can make so much change. You can spread so much information that way. And I've been doing keto for a long time, and when I heard Sean talk about zero carb, I was like, wow, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I actually don't really know why plants are that good for me. I don't really know why fiber is good for me. And it was actually in August of 2017 last year that I watched a YouTube video by Sean, and he was recruiting people for an N equals many study. N equals many means you have, if you have one anecdote, right, you have like, all right, this, whatever someone did is like evidence that something worked. But if you have many anecdotes together, it builds up a consensus, and it almost gets to like a scientific level of evidence. But the problem is it's not really science. It's not like a randomized controlled trial. It's not like you're not testing one diet versus another or control groups. You're basically just saying, well, someone was on a crappy American standard diet for their whole life, and now they're only eating meat, and what are the changes? As far as I've seen, most people seem to really get ridiculous changes out of it. It's really made me question a lot of my assumptions about what are humans, like I feel like a lot of us have been questioning, like, what are we? Like, why are we here? Like what's our purpose on this planet? And reconcile how healthy we get when we eat like a mostly meat diet. It's like, well, are we really meat eaters, or like we just like these techno-cultural, like, I don't know, cyborgs now that like are completely dependent on like the myths that we've all created and dependent on. It really eschews common thought and makes you think out of the box. So now my new idea is, I think humans are facultative carnivores.
Whoa.
It's like facultative. It means an animal does best on an all meat diet. So like we're omnivores, right? We can eat plants and animals, right? We could probably live off of either one or only one of each for a couple of years at least. I'll give it that. But if we take all the plants out of an animal's diet, and it's only eating meat, and it experiences the most amount of health, then does that mean it's like it evolved on a diet of mostly meat, and that's what makes it best? That's what keeps it in its like top hunting shape, its best survival, the least amount of chronic disease. And so now I've been seeing all these meat heal stories, all these people that have been recording their changes, and I know a lot of it comes down to keto. I mean, keto is just obviously a far better metabolic profile for everyone to be on, but zero carb is like the next step. Your keto requires 20 to 50 grams of carbs a day. It doesn't require, you have to have that or less.
You have to measure macros.
Yeah, you're just measuring macros. If you're eating less than 20 grams of carbs a day, you're going to be in keto. And some people can go up to 50, but zero carb is technically a ketogenic diet because you're not having any carbs. But all your macros are coming from meat.
Are you measuring ketone? Like, do ketones matter?
I don't matter at all.
Right? No, they don't matter at all.
And
no more peeing on strips. Blood test.
We generally say like you shouldn't measure it at all. You shouldn't really care that much. But a lot of people that start off on the diet are really concerned about it. They've been eating sugar their whole lives, and they want to see like they're in keto. It feels good. Yeah.
Are you worried about popular adoption of? I mean, let's start with keto before we work down into zero carb. But are you worried that popular adoption is going to facilitate people or foster people who don't do the macros properly? Like, I know people who go into low carb, or who think they're going to keto, but they're not measuring macros. They're losing weight. And they're like, yeah, rah, I'm pumped. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But
Bruce?
really, they're not gaining the cognitive benefits of that.
Who, Bruce?
Paul, Bruce, like they're I can name a bunch of
Well, he
people.
lost 60 pounds, but he wasn't full keto.
That's his dad, but he got his dad onto keto.
So, like, you can be in low carb. Like, low carb is generally thought of as like 150 grams of carbs down to like 50 grams. So you're not really in ketosis all the time, but you do like, you're having a lot less carbs, you're secreting a lot less insulin, and over the long run, yeah, you do lose weight. But yeah, I don't think it's, I don't, like, I think low carb is a stepping stone to getting to keto. Mm-hmm. And the shorter you can do low carb, the better, because I think keto is just far superior.
Well, here's what's on my mind. And I've had to, we can say an expert here. A lot of people I know, even myself, and I would say experts, even like Don Augustino, mm-hmm. You'll hear him talk about this sometimes. What does it mean to be in keto? Because it's kind of, is it dependent on you producing any kind of ketones in your liver? Because I mean, you could technically flood yourself in the morning with enough MCT and BHB mm-hmm. to producing ketones that put you in a state of ketosis or a mm-hmm. mild state. So what is it for you? And like, what, I know you probably have more people who've done studies and testing to say like, oh, this is ketosis.
I think it means that you're doing a long-term diet, that you're not like introducing any large amounts of carbohydrates. I usually say 3 days is like at least 3 days without a lot of carbs puts you in ketosis. So if you want to feel it, just like don't eat carbs for 3 days, and you can even fast. You can eat nothing and you'll be in ketosis.
We've had loads of success and amount of benefits being this guy from just fasting.
I think it's really funny that both fasting and keto, they both restrict carbs. That's what they do. So everyone's saying like, oh, keto is a starvation diet. Well, a starvation diet is a keto diet. I mean, they're both omitting carbs from your body, and the carbs produce the hormone responses that lead to chronic disease. So either way, if you can remove those carbs from your diet, you're going to get healthier. So nutritional ketosis, I say, is like a 0.5 millimolar, mm-hmm. Like on a pee strip or a blood prick thing.
How much more accurate is the blood prick to the pee test?
I would say it's more accurate, but I've literally only done one prick of my finger, like, and that was on the human podcast. So I got a 0.5 there, and I had lunch like 5 hours before, maybe like 6 hours before, so it wasn't quite fasted. But Jeffrey Wu, who was fasting all day that day, was at like a 1.8. So It seems like the longer you fast, the more ketones you have.
Well, what's the next step to jump into zero carb? Like, what am I looking to do with myself if I want to just jump in?
You want to jump right in?
Yeah.
Right away?
I think we're ready. I mean, I've been really tempted to go just, like, even carnivore, just like, seeing the results. I love testing. I want to see peak optimal performance and feeling, and it's like biohacking's my drug. Like, oh, this is the thing that's going to get me better. It's going to get me faster.
You got to know, after the show, you've got two people who are diving head deep into this and spreading it with everyone that they can.
All right, so let's
look at the meats on the table. We got some sausage over here, pepperoni.
This is our first meal. So my advice: A, be really committed to picking a amount of time that you can do. Like, if you're gonna say you're gonna do it, but then like you're not gonna do it for an amount of time that you can feel a difference, then you're not really doing it. You really have to commit, right? So what does that mean? I say 30 days at least, but you're not really gonna feel fat adapted until 2 months. Now, if you're already in keto, it might be a little less, because really all you're doing is taking out 20 more grams of carbs a day and basically veggies, right? That's like people in keto are eating meat and low carb green veggies, and they just remove the veggies and eat a little more meat. That's the difference. But in reality, I mean, keto has been out for a long time. Low carb has been out. We have Quest bars. We have all these stuff that we can now eat. You can make like cakes and almond flour, and you got coconut oil, and there's like all these products that fit the keto lifestyle, but they don't really fit zero carb, because a lot of them aren't made with animal products. Zero carb is really an animal based diet, so pretty much as long as it's some kind of animal product, meat, cheese, eggs, milk, dairy, it's acceptable. That said, I don't suggest milk, because it's pretty much sugar water.
So almond milk, you just no,
it's not good for you.
And for now, marketers are just licking their chops, that waiting to create some animal products that they can sell for, something.
That's the big problem with animal products. You can't really mark them up that much. With plants, you can process them like 100 times, and each time you process them, you're adding value, and you're removing different products and pulling it apart, basically, right? So you get like tons of different byproducts from just growing corn, right? You've got like corn, you can make high fructose corn syrup, you can make like silage for cows,
popcorn from the seeds,
you can make popcorn from the seeds, and then you can make corn oil too, which is like vegetable oil.
Animal feed, ethanol.
Yeah, ethanol, right. So like all these plants can be processed so far down, and every time you process it, you're adding value, and then you can sell something that isn't that high in weight, but for a lot of money. Like a bag of chips is like $2 or $3 or $4, but it's only like a couple ounces of food, and it's mostly carbs and bad fats for you. So meats, like, you can't add much value to them because all you're doing is killing an animal, butchering it, and then giving the meat, or like selling the meat somewhere. There's not that many middlemen.
Just like the processed meats, though. I mean, when you
the processed meats, right. They add more labor into it, right? And they require time, drying, aging, pickling. Yeah, right. And I mean, processed meats are usually what, like $40 a pound, compared to like a regular like pork loin is like $5 a pound. So like a prosciutto thing is like $42 a pound. It's like crazy. But you never buy it by the pound. You buy like regular meat by the pound. So back into zero carb, how do you start, right? So first of all, I know everyone's human. So everyone has the ability to basically cheat on their diets. So I really recommend you need to go through your house and throw out all the junk food.
He's a cheater. I'm disciplined.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you can be pretty disciplined, but let's face it. If you know there's chocolate in that second drawer next to the fridge or something, you're gonna remember it when you're down and you feel crappy, and you're gonna go eat it. And it's better to get rid of it on day 1 than eat it on day 19 and then regret it for 3 days. But
it's tough in New York. I mean, I could just walk outside.
Yeah, but that's different. That's like you're going out, you're spending money. I mean, yeah, everything is out there.
You gotta optimize your life around you. That's really, you have to trick the psychology of the self.
Yeah, right.
That's
like
really
if you have it already in your possession, then you're like, the only thing that's changing is it's going from my drawer to my stomach, and I'm gonna enjoy the taste or whatever. But I mean, honestly, I think people do cheat, and we see stories about it all the time in the forums, and they regret it. And their advice comes out, and they say, look, I did this, and it didn't feel so good for 2 or 3 days, and it sucks, and I got all this inflammation again, and now I know. And I'm saying, like, if you want to have those episodes, like, keep your junk food in your house, but try not to eat it. But if you want to just like remove it and really think clean and really think you can do carnivore the right way, then get rid of them. Other thing is, do it with someone like a friend, like a close friend or a spouse or a girlfriend or something. My girlfriend and I do it together. Super helpful. We cook all the time together. We don't have to think about
who got it first. Did you?
I've done keto for 7 years.
I mean, did you say, hey, you got to do keto or we can't date?
Sort of, yeah. She actually did keto.
Zero carb.
She did like keto for like 3 or 4 months, like right before we started like seriously dating, and she lost 30 to 40 pounds.
Wow. And
like completely changed, and it was great. And then I was like, okay, well, we're gonna have to stay keto now for life. And she's like, okay. I mean, like, yeah, like everyone's had their fat kid moment, and I don't think anyone enjoys it that much.
Keto for life. It's on the ring.
That's the thing. Like I learned about keto when I was 22, right? So I lost like 10 to 15 pounds. I was back to like my high school weight, like 160, and I'm like, all right, like, do I just like keep doing this, or do I like go back to my crappy old diet and have a bunch of beer and enjoy life? But I would do that, and then I would like stop enjoying life. Like, I didn't really like the bloated feeling, the low energy, the binging. I mean, I'm a notorious binger. Like, give me ice cream and a 6-pack and I'll finish them both and then go get more. It's not good. So I'm really trying to like prevent that binging. And I think it's just like when you eat carbs, like your brain just says, give me more. And it's really hard to rationally say no to that.
Well, let me circle back around a little bit. What do you think about, everyone's body, I guess, is different, right? You know, that phrase, that everyone's body is different. So I'm curious your thoughts on that. And then what adaptations do you think, our bodies are meant for, and sort of the scientific approach?
I see that face. You're just like, it's all psychological, man. You're just like,
like, I do want to acknowledge that everyone is different. We all have slightly different DNA. But on the other hand, we're all the same species. That means we can reproduce with each other. It means that we probably have a pretty similar diet. Most species out there have the same diet for all animals. And we don't say, oh, look, this monkey needs to have more sugary fruit, whereas this monkey needs to have more bugs in its diet. It's like
interesting.
Yeah, well, what about, for instance, people from India who can't process milk? I don't know if that's true or not. That's just sort of the cultural, word that's said out there.
Right. So again, it's my framework now is thinking like, not like, what did humans do 50,000 to 500,000 years ago? I really don't think the things that have changed in the past 10,000 years matter that much on a nutritional level. They've really been like, we hunted big ruminants to extinction, the ice ages ended, it became much harder to find game, and then we invented agriculture, and we realized we could sit around and read books all day and share our knowledge and create culture. So I'm happy we did that, and I like being able to talk into a microphone and have it record my voice. I'm like, it's an amazing technology. But now I'm saying, well, I don't really think our bodies have changed themselves to adapt to like our new nutritional foundations, and this is called an evolutionary mismatch, which means like you're trying to adapt an organism that doesn't have the right like requirements for its like optimal growth. Our evolutionary mismatch is that we're mostly eating plants. We're like 70 to 90% of our diet is now plants, and most people are really sick. I mean, 92% of American adults have overfat.
It's absolutely crazy.
And we're talking about obesity and like morbid obesity at like 35 and 65 or whatever percent. But it's like the vast majority of people have a little bit more weight than they need. And I just think it's a spectrum of insulin resistance, right? So you can eat so many carbs in your life, and then your carbs start adding weight to you, and then over time you just get bigger and bigger. And for some, it takes a long time because they don't eat a lot of carbs when they're young, or they have a lot of access to meat or whatever, and they might get diabetes when they're 55.
Well, can you explain the science of how that works real quick for the audience members who might not understand?
Yeah, so when you eat any carbohydrates are glucose.
Speak a little bit more in the mic. Or
we'll edit. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Let's try that a little better.
Better.
Yeah. If you could just speak a little louder, just.
All right. So.
There we go.
So how do we explain what insulin is? So insulin is a hormone. It's released by the pancreas. It's a little organ, like kind of in the middle of your body. And when you eat dietary carbohydrates, such as glucose or fructose or starches, this means potatoes, chips, bread, any sugary drink, beer, all these carbohydrates go into your stomach, and then they go into your small intestine, and they very quickly get absorbed into your bloodstream. And this raises your blood sugar in your blood. At any one time, you only have 5 grams of carbs in your blood, in like all the liters of blood. So as soon as you eat, let's say 1 soda, right? It's like 40 grams of sugar. Boom, like right into your bloodstream. So how does your body cope with, it wants 5 grams and now it has 45 grams. So what it does is it tells the pancreas to release insulin, and insulin helps push all the sugar in the bloodstream into cells so that the cells can basically ferment it. So my idea is, I don't think this is like an older metabolic state, but it's a less clean state, and it produces all these crappy byproducts for our body. So it produces lactic acid through this fermentation cycle. So it's fermenting the glucose, and it's not like a good long-term thing for your body to. It's not a sustainable energy source, you know.
How would you explain lactic acid? Because I mean, you know, I exercise, I've worked out, I've heard of it, but I still don't understand what exactly the term is. Because I even know, like, even when you exercise, your body produces a lot of lactic acid in order to counter the exercising and the inflammation that you're about to take on with your muscles tearing and ripping. Right.
So lactic acid is a byproduct of this carb burning metabolism, and it just, honestly, I don't know that well about it. I'm reading this book right now, The Metabolic Theory of Cancer, and a lot of it has to do with these metabolic systems where you're breaking down glucose into pyruvate, and then pyruvate into lactic acid. And the big idea is that lactic acid changes like your body's metabolism, and it starts favoring burning of sugars, or it basically can't respirate anymore. So respiring means you're using oxygen, and then you're going through the Krebs cycle, and you're releasing like a ton of ATP, and it's really clean and efficient and nice. But the cancer cells start using lactic acid instead, and that causes changes in the genes that then lead to cancer.
Mm-hmm. Well, I even think cancer as well is not very well understood. I mean, on a basic definition of it, it's just a multiplication or a multiplying of growth that can't be controlled or established. And that can happen, you know, within any cell. You know, when you pick up a cancer in the pancreas, you know, you're getting an uncontrollable release of a certain kind of cell or component that's being released at a rate you can't stop. I mean, same thing goes with I think my grandmother had this, but like one of them in her bone marrow, where it's just producing so many white blood cells now that over time the white blood cells are just battling and competing against every other cell in the body. So it's almost even like a form of autoimmune in her case, where the body is battling itself and hurting itself, and it can't control what's right and what's wrong.
And that's a really good way that I kind of think of just eating carbs and like poor foods in general. It means that your body is now having to deal with all this inflammation, and it can't fight the normal battles it was designed to fight. You know, like your immune system decreases when you eat carbs.
And it's crazy the pushback that this receives. Like the cancer, obesity, you know, diabetes, killing, heart disease, killing so many people, and they've been, you know, what we've been saying for years in the U.S. is, you need to have low fat and eat this and eat that, and it literally hasn't worked. Like, aren't people going to say, okay, maybe this is some potential? But no, people hold on to dear life onto their science that is clearly we're still in a huge sort of, you know, issue here in the U.S.
It's even more nuts because, you know, for your point, like, how much farther are we expected to live? How much more healthier are we expected to be if we had changed up our diets like this, especially if it's in a first generation, if we're going and really, really, really pursuing this keto and, no carb to carnivore type diet. Am I going to get 10 more years of my life? Again, we're talking health wise, not a gunshot wound to the body that kills you, but, something on the health and medical side. How much longer is this supposed to improve my life? Or is it just supposed to improve my overall experience that I get to do on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good question. I mean, frankly, I don't know. There haven't been that many long-term carnivores. We have the Inuit, so we know some people, or like bands of people, can live on mostly meat diets their whole life.
I mean, they're eating like seal and walrus and whale.
Good stuff.
Really good stuff. Pretty jealous.
You eat walrus a lot?
Listen, I'd love to sit down and eat some walrus.
You know anybody? They got walrus meat in here in New York?
No, but you can get Alaska shippers to send stuff down.
Really?
I think so. Maybe not walrus, but maybe seal. I'm gonna try and find some of this stuff.
Well, we're gonna talk about a seal feast.
My girlfriend tried whale actually, and she went to Scandinavia, and because it's super north up there, they have whales, I guess.
It's so taboo to talk about.
Oh, I know. And I don't I'm not suggesting we go out and start hunting whales again, but if it's there, I'll definitely try it.
I can't say I haven't tasted it yet, so I'm going to stay neutral on this one.
I mean, it's a huge, it brings up a whole other side of the debate is, okay, it's this, okay, let's say that this is proven right nutritionally, that this is factually the most important, historical discovery for our bodies, and
how do we cope with it, right?
And then also how do we cope with the moral and ethical side of what we could be doing to animals? What is the solution to that? I know that's actually the vegan argument I agree with, as opposed to the nutritional one.
Yeah,
and so I understand that perspective, and it's I don't know what we're going to do for the future,
especially seeing the way how it's done. I mean, when you watch some of these movies, or people get cameras inside the factories, because same thing with me, it's like I'm seeing, maybe I got to find a way to really cut back on eating meat at all, because it's tough seeing those videos. I mean, just
it is. I've actually mostly ignored most of those videos.
I'm with you.
I just can't slow down.
But I honestly probably should watch them just so I know what people are really watching. You shouldn't watch Cowspiracy or What the Health. You should watch The Magic Pill on Netflix. That's what I suggest. All right, so let's see. We've got all these topics now that we've half covered. So cancer, and then you were talking about why all these ideas are entrenched. So let's talk about that a little more. So back in let's see. It's how far back do we want to go, right? So I've read Not by Bread Alone, also known as The Fat of the Land, which is de facto the best carnivore book that everyone needs to read. It's by Valdemar Stephenson, who is a Icelandic explorer. He was, I guess he went to Harvard, and then he was living in New York City, and then he went on a trip basically when he was young, up to the Arctic, and he lived up there for 10 years, and over the 10 years he lived for 5 years on meat alone. And he lived as an Eskimo. He lived in their little, houses. I don't even know what to call them.
Igloos?
Igloos, yeah.
Yurts?
I think, yeah, I'm not really sure what they're called, but I can kind of describe them. But he would eat, as they ate, they would eat only fish for 3 months in a row. Then they would eat only caribou for a couple months when they could hunt it. Then they would eat only seal meat for a couple months.
Seasonal.
Yeah, it would be a different seasonal meat through the year. So it's not even that you need an assortment of different meats. You're fine with one kind of meat for months on end. I think when you read this book and you're wow, this guy really did it. It's he's not an Eskimo who evolved through this lifestyle. He doesn't have long ancestors. He's just a human, and he went to the Arctic. He started eating only meat, and he felt the best he's ever felt. And then he also describes like other anecdotes of all the other foreigners that were up in the Arctic, like some guy from like the Caribbean islands. And he also felt amazing, you know? So all these, so this was back in the 1920s, 100 years ago, right? And then he writes a book, this nutritional book called The Fat of the Land in like 1946. And already he's complaining about all the nutritionists that are pushing plants and fiber and grains and vegetables on him. And they think he's not going to last 3 weeks. If even, like he'll drop over dead from something. They think he'll get scurvy. They'll think he'll suffer some awful nutritional deficiencies. They all think he's lying because he told them, like, I lived on meat for 5 years. Like, how do you guys explain that? And they're all like, you're lying. Like, we can't even fathom it. And this was like 100 years ago. So like, how do we, I really don't think anything has changed, to be honest. Like, so in 1928 in Bellevue Hospital right here in New York City, Valdemar Stephenson and one of his friends who did an expedition with him named Anderson, they did a 1-year experiment where they lived on only meat in New York City, basically. And for like the first month, they were in the hospital, kind of locked off, so that like the doctors made sure they didn't eat anything. They always had someone watching them whenever they were around, you know, like they couldn't sneak anything in. But they were like, we don't need to cheat. We don't care, you know, like we're not trying to like pretend like zero carb works. We know it works. So after like a month or two, they stopped being followed all around, but they would go around the city and ask for like big fat mutton from lamb, and they would get like ribeyes and stuff. They would ask for like big muscle meat plates, and sometimes they would ask for brains. And they did an experiment for this whole year, and then at the end they measured them, and they were like, wow, they're in perfect health. And none of the doctors knew how to explain that, right? So I think really, like, if you're questioning whether zero carb is real for you, right for you, I mean, you really have to question, well, what knowledge do you know, and why do you think it's true? And are you really like accepting someone else's claims without investigating whether they're right? Or are you just basically taking it on faith that, you know, your nutritionists and your dietitians and all this like propaganda from nutritional areas of research are completely true and completely, you know, have no financial interest behind them? And I think once you peel back that layer and you think, whoa, what am I eating? And like, what's in this stuff? And like, I think you'll think 10 times more than you think about how cows are suffering on farms and stuff. And I don't even think they're suffering that much. I mean, farmers and ranchers, they really care about their animals. They want them to be healthy. They want them to live good lives. And then they put them in feedlots and they eat grain for 4 to 6 months, and then they get slaughtered. That's how we do it. And we're very efficient in America. We're way more efficient than cattle production in other parts of the world. So hopefully we can spread some of our good practices around and reduce emissions and help the world out. I think there's some really interesting ideas with Alan Savory, holistic farming. You can look this guy up on...
Has he been in a few of those food documentaries? Guy with the glasses and suspenders. He kind of...
Yeah, maybe suspenders. Yeah, he's from Africa. He had a TEDx talk, or like a TED talk.
Suspenders can mean anything for a farmer.
Yeah,
that's very profiling.
But he basically had like arid African land, and they all thought that the land was dead because they put too many cattle on it. But instead, there were no ruminants on it. Ruminants are like animals that eat grass and then ferment it in their body and turn it into fat, basically. So ruminants weren't on the land, and when he introduced them back, their droppings like fertilized the ground, and they trampled the plants into the ground, and they made like they basically restore the land. And I think it makes a lot of sense, right? 100,000 years ago, we had great herds of these ruminants all over the earth. We had 100 million bison here in America, right? They were all across like America, like moving in herds, trampling the grass down, and then moving around to a new area to eat more fresh grass. And the idea is like you can create farms that have these ideas and restore the ground to be more environmentally friendly. So I hope that's how we can steer the conversation out of like the vegan, narrative where all meat production is really evil. And yeah, we are killing animals. I mean, that sucks. But I think we have to acknowledge our role in the world as facultative carnivores. And like, we didn't ask to be born. Like, we're just here and we're hungry. So what are we going to do about it?
That's like something exactly you'd say. We're here and we're hungry.
And we think like meat is really good for us.
The interesting was the psychological aspect that you've tried to, I wouldn't say instill, but you tried to give us that a feel and approach. Like, why is this the way it is? 'Cause as a history guy myself, I look at things like, oh well, it's only this way because we've been alive, or it's been a certain amount of safety and security for a certain amount of time, that this is the way it's been, and we all agree to this. This is one cultural rule in this part of the world or that part of the world, so we all think it's good. But one rock hitting the earth at a certain speed and a certain velocity and angle, and we don't know whatever cultures or traditions are going to get passed on and moved on. And going into what you just spin into that aspect of, well, we used to have that, because that's true, especially with the bison in North America. We had 100 million of them. They're not there anymore. And what we've done to our land because of agriculture, I wouldn't say for 6,000 years, but I mean, even more in the industrial scale and level we've done the past 100, 200 years, is most of this land is getting to the point where it's almost arid and will not be able to produce any more crops at all, because it's not doesn't have the circle rotations. The land doesn't get rest. It just goes from one crop to same crop to same crop. No biodiversity on the land at all. So I don't know. I mean, especially when the first point you came up with when we just started the show, maybe we're supposed to be these cyborgs and just as a whole cultural and species just switch over and say, okay, we're gonna be carnivores for the next 50 years. Let the land rest. Let the cows get out there, start chewing some grass, dropping it here. Now we'll test it out. Let's give the earth a break, and let's go with a different approach for now. I'm interested in the experimental side.
Yeah, that's a good idea. But I'm not going to be one of those.
What?
I'm not going to be one of those who stop eating meat. Oh.
No, we wouldn't stop eating meat.
He's saying everyone eat meat so we can let the land rest. But once it happens, then we're Then I hopefully we trick everybody into just eating meat.
I think the meat is restoring the grass and making it better. The mono. Yeah. So do you know Lear Keith? She's an ex-vegan who has been talking about nutrition and basically her nutritional deficiencies.
I love when you say it, ex-vegan. There's a ring to it for me.
It's a great thing, and vegans get really mad. They're like, "Oh, there's no such thing as an ex-vegan," like you can't. It's like a no true Scotsman fallacy, like. If you were a real vegan, you can't change your mind. Like you can't like your nutritional deficiencies are like a joke, or you were just detoxing. They always have a way to explain it. But she was basically saying that the entire Middle East, like the fertile crescent of human civilization, used to be super green and was like great land for farming, but we monocropped it into a desert. Like thousands of years ago, and now it's just like now you think of like Iraq and Afghanistan and all these like Middle Eastern countries, and they're like big deserts, and it's because we destroyed it all by overdoing the land. And now she's worried that we're doing the same thing like here in America and other large countries.
Oh, the Great Plains and that breadbasket right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The breadbasket. Yeah. Yeah, back in like the 30s, right?
Well, we had that Dust Bowl because of that same reason. The crops were just getting the topsoil was getting so overused that it just literally blew away. And for a whole few cycles of like 8 to 10 years, we just could not grow as many crops in that area. And I mean, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, you want to think that. I mean, I would believe her. in GMOs, if we can modify, a seed to only take a drop of water and still be able to put out a certain amount of food for people to have food in, around the world, where they can be a carnivore or a vegan or eat any diet, but for someone to have food, that'd be a great thing. But, apparently the GMOs do not work as well in those aspects. Like, it's not either on that scale yet. We can just drop one water. That's good for a whole plot of land. We're running out of water, so this is going to help here. So, I'm hearing more and more good things about carnivore. Cancer.
Disease. You want to go back to cancer?
Well, overall health, because...
Overall health?
Yeah.
Just some of the biological aspects.
I've had some, when I first went keto, and then I was full-fledged keto, I made sure I got my blood tests before. I want to test my vital levels, because, I'm very curious about that. And I advise everybody who is going to do any carnivore, keto, vegan, before you switch over to any diet, commit really to something, test your levels, go to the doctor. You haven't had your annual checkup. You can get that stuff all paid for by insurance. It's worth doing to
get
know.
The full lipid panel.
Yeah. I mean, I come from a background of kidney disease in my family. So, that was one thing for me, where your body processes proteins, especially in the kidney, is something I wanted to measure and, maintain over time. My triglyceride count went up, never to a level that was threatening, and I think, a certain amount of exercise is going to always counter and balance, especially what you're going to be doing, those the lipids as well as your cholesterol, good and bad, during that exercise count. But, I forgot what the initial question is, but, I'm just really curious on the profiling and trying to figure out who you are, what's good for you. Is this diet for everybody?
So is it for everyone? Like, my theory is that we're facultative carnivores, so technically it should be good for everyone. But we've all kind of ruined our bodies in a lot of ways by eating plants our whole life. So I can't really say for sure, like, have you lost some kind of function, like your gallbladder doesn't work as well, or like you can't process fat that well, you don't release bile from your gallbladder, or your gut is like so used to processing like 30 to 40 grams of fiber every day that it has to change itself. And then like there's all these autoimmune issues. I mean, meat isn't perfect. There's histamines in it, which some people are allergic to. There's like those ticks that you can bite you, and then you become allergic to red meat. So
like Lyme disease?
It's like Lyme. Well, it's like a different thing. It's not Lyme disease exactly. Okay. It's like a different like bacteria that messes up your ability to digest red meat.
Ooh.
How does it work on autoimmune disease? Because so many people are being cured specifically from autoimmune disease.
Yeah, so what I found, like keto addresses the metabolic diseases. So it switches you from a glucose burner to a fat burner, and that helps with all sorts of things. But then the other side that it doesn't really fix is the autoimmune issues. So the autoimmune issues, I think, are helped by the elimination of plants. So we haven't got into it yet, but plants, we all assume are really good for us. But why? Like, if you ask a guy on the street, like, why are plants good for you? I don't think he will have a very long list. He'll say, oh, they have fiber in them.
Antioxidants,
minerals and vitamins.
Oh, don't tell me about antioxidants. It's like, how much antioxidation does your body actually need in your cells to keep you young?
They're colorful. They have to be good for you.
You gotta have green, red, orange, blue.
And nutritionists have been using these like terms, like have a rainbow plate of different colored fruits and veggies, and you'll get all the requirements. Thing is, all the requirements are in meat itself. So a lot of these ideas have been basically peddled to us as ways to sell plants and grains and all this crappy food for us.
What nutrients are you saying that are in meat? Like, I'm getting vitamins and minerals.
If you eat liver, brains.
Like, people have been on the carnivore diet without organ meats, without liver for 8 to 20 years and have like no major problems about it. Now, maybe they're going to drop dead tomorrow. I can't really say, but and I know nutritional deficiencies take a long time to come out.
Not knowing. There's no long-term studies, so.
But we have no long-term studies that indicate plants are good for us. Like compared to like if you have a meat-only diet and then you add plants, like do you get better or worse better or worse outcomes. We don't know.
Well, a lot of the anecdotes are the people who go zero carb, who cure something, and then they try to put something back into the diet. They test this, and usually they can pinpoint what it's destroying in themselves.
Yeah, so that's called like testing inflammation and inflammation foods, and you basically you adopt a baseline, say just beef and water, right? Like you could live off beef and water for probably the rest of your life.
A beef water diet.
Yeah, we call it the beef cleanse, or like
what a 3-week beef cleanse.
Yeah, this guy named Vegetable Police recently. He was like he's like a long-term vegan for like 4 or 5 years. He literally moved to Thailand just so he could have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And then he went on a carnivore diet like 3 months ago, and now he's like making YouTube videos, and he's like, I'm a carnivore now, and all the vegans that watch his channel are like all mad at him. So there's like all these.
It's a cultish.
And this is like a thing I've seen a lot now. A lot of vegans have been transitioning into carnivore because they feel so bad, and they're like, all right, I can like stop like with the ethical side and try the nutritional side, and then they feel amazing, and then they're like, okay, I have to change my mind about a lot of these things.
I think if anything, it sounds like it's just something that needs to be cycled. You know, even like keto on a basis, I still don't see it long term forever for one person to maintain and stay on it. You know, then it could be years.
Honestly, it's probably best to do it like 70 to 80% of the time. And I mean, I don't know. I don't really know that. I mean, like, you should basically live your life keto based, and then like if you want to enjoy like a cake every now and then, you can have it.
Doing it right.
But I mean, you know, these are all individual choices. It's like I can't tell someone like, yeah, you can only eat meat for the rest of your life. Like, I'm still gonna cheat every now and again, you know.
It's rooted. Well, the discussion is rooted in what's the right information out there. If someone is looking to protect their health and to live a long and healthy lifestyle, and then they want to be provided the proper information. There are some people that are going to go, yeah, I mean, that might be true. I don't give a shit. Like, I love my sugar and sweets. Like this conversation isn't necessarily for that person. The conversation is for the people seeking out the right information, so that we can at least start at the base of knowing what's the best for humans, for our biology, for getting us into the future, for having us, you know, become an elite species that lives forever and can sort of have its most optimal core of self when we expand into the universe. But like, how are we going to do that if we don't even know what's best for ourselves when we approach some like, you know, alien species that has optimized their health, and then we don't know anything about it. Oh, I went off there.
Wait until we like start looking for other life just so we can hunt it.
And that's something I'm interested in. Well, here, okay, so how do you think we would, so let's say we find another species and they're sort of, let's say they're non-intelligent, they're suboptimal. What do you think we're going to do as humans? Do you think we're going to like harvest them and
I don't know. Like? I mean, the question is like, what are their bodies made out of? Like, is their DNA or their cell
compatible with ours?
Yeah, like, are they, like, we need fats and amino acids, right? Like, how do we know at all that they have similar things that we can break down?
They might have some strange genetic profile that we don't understand.
And maybe they evolved some kind of like defense from other, you know, animals on that planet that are very inflammatory to us, you know? Or maybe they're not at all. Like, a lot of life evolves to fight each other, you know? So if we never fought them, maybe we would be fine to eat them.
Yeah, actually, we had someone on our podcast.
Scott Solomon?
Yeah, we had someone on our podcast who we were discussing, you know, how would humans evolve if we, let's say, made it to Mars, and let's say we made it to another planet. And one of the more fascinating topics that came up was, I was under the belief that what diseases would we adopt if we adopt diseases pretty easily. Look at us when we 1600s, we go off to Aztecs, we kill them off, they adopt our diseases. But what actually turns out is it would be extremely unlikely that we adopt a disease because they'd have such a different genetic profile that diseases don't cross DNA like so easily. So we'll get occasionally diseases from, let's say, primates, but how often have you picked up a disease from a lizard? So imagine something that's ridiculously profiled differently across the globe. So, but that's, we can probably pick up diseases if I eat a toad. Like toads have poison in their back. I might eat a poisonous creature from another planet and it might have a great genetic profile, and then I have some strange boilless disease that's popping over my body. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
it'll be something we'll cross that road when we get there. I mean, it's all like we have no idea even if there is other life out there. I kind of think there is, but I think it's too far away for us to ever really figure it out.
Well, quick situation. If it's a life form on another planet, can we kill it? If you don't think you should kill life on that planet, it's the same thing. We're not taking that apart on this planet.
Like Star Trek?
Life is life.
Yeah, I mean, and the other interesting idea is, like, we don't even know how smart other animals on this planet are, right? Like, could we have a nice conversation with a dolphin? Like, yeah, you probably could, like, if you could figure out how to talk to it. And they're trying to, like, slow down, like, these sounds that all these animals are making, and now they can, like, tell what mice are saying, I think there's so much more that we can learn about our other animals, and how much do they think like us? Like,
well, that's like what John Lilly used to do. That's why I had to go look up that name right there. He's a scientist who took enough ketamine inside a float tank next to dolphins, and he said there was a form of communication. Like,
really?
Acclaimed doctor, the psychedelic assessed scientist who learned to speak with dolphins and communicate with them. He was pretty out there.
I can see that.
Well, I mean, it comes back to understanding our own genetic profile, our own genetic makeup, understanding what's the best thing for us to eat. And you're right. I kind of went a little crazy there and was thinking about aliens and other species, but like truly to us, we don't even know our own bodies. At this point, dolphins are alien to us. Other primates are alien to us.
Yeah, right.
So, it's important work, I think, understanding the body and like what we should be eating. And then it's also, you were talking about before the show Gary Taubes, right? And how how important what you read was to him, and he's taking a different approach, and he's talking about the media and scientists and journals, and sort of we have an upstream battle in that whole regard as well.
Yeah, and that's a battle I fight every day on Twitter.
Yeah, and you're fighting the good fight in ketoscience, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best information I've ever read. There's phenomenal information coming out of there. It's like people actually engaged in good dialogue using science, like using what at this point in the universe, the only thing that matters is the scientific method, and using correct studies. It's the only way we can prove anything.
Yeah.
Well, especially experimentation on the self. Like, hey, here's the information. Do what you will with it. Especially if we say, the bodies are different, where you think they are different or not so different. You're only going to know from doing it yourself, especially when we have those layers of biases about what's actually real. If this is the case, do we actually have enough information and studies? And I'm trying to think back and like, okay, we've really had the Industrial Revolution be able to populate cities more and move into these kind of cultures. Only in the past, in societies in the past 150 years, to live inside cities where we said, okay, we need... New York City is the best example. We have this 9 million people living on an island and maybe a little chunk of land here. And how do we get all this food, all these resources here to the people? The people who work on the island can't even afford to live on the island, and they got to be shipped and bussed in every single day on ferries and buses and underground worms that go under the city and bring these people in to feed the people who sometimes do stay and live in the city, who don't even work inside here, and we got to get this machine to work.
Does all the food get?
And everybody's got to cooperate.
9 million people.
A lot of trucks.
I
haven't seen like any trucks in the city.
And everybody cooperates. And if you just don't get in anybody's way, we make it work and make it happen, and no one says anything in order to feed this machine. And that's just how it's been. That's only for the past 150 years.
Yeah.
And it's
absolutely amazing, yeah.
Kudos to human ingenuity.
But a lot of it comes down to economics, right? So a lot of nutrition is based on economics and what can people sell and what can people market. I really think there's no such thing as nutrition science, really. It's really like a marketing arm of the big food industry. They've been paying off Harvard. There's this corporation, there's this company called ILSI, International Life Sciences Institute. Sounds completely harmless, right? It's a big sugar conglomerate.
Was that the one back in the 1970s when they paid to get saturated fat, like to get
yeah,
labeled as
I think it's like the precursor to that. Yeah, and then like the American Heart Association, right? We all think like they're helping against heart disease. They started with a seed grant from Procter & Gamble, which ended up being the largest vegetable oil producer. So I think vegetable oils are like one of the worst things you can eat, and literally the company that makes them started the American Heart Association to say that saturated fat in animal products was worse than vegetable oil.
Nice.
And now everyone believes it. And it's like,
crazy.
The thing is, like, all these ideas, most of what people believe today is wrong. But it takes so much research and effort, and the problem is we all have confirmation bias, and we experience cognitive dissonance when we hear ideas that, like, don't agree with what we know. So even, like, we don't even need good reasons when we hear an idea. Like, the first idea we hear, we tend to believe. And then even if you present evidence against that and you show why it's wrong, someone still won't believe it.
People are too tied to that idea.
Because that's just how our brains work. Yeah. So it's like, it's really tough. And like, there's no easy way for me to say like, oh yeah, just go eat meat and learn and read 20 books and listen to 50 podcasts and you'll be all set. It's like, I mean, yeah, that is my advice. Go out there and learn. Like, I'm only 29. Like, I shouldn't really care about my nutritional status, right? Like, this is for something that people suddenly care about once they get type 2 diabetes when they're 45. But I don't want to be one of those people. I want to be informed, and I want to believe true things, right? So if there are things that are preventing me from knowing true things, they usually just come down to like your own beliefs. It's confirmation bias. You want to keep learning things that confirm your view, and then there's cognitive dissonance. You want to prevent information that might change your view.
The seed oils.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, let's go back.
I want to go back to seed oils because tell me more about that.
That was me. You weren't falling backwards.
So seed oils. Seed oils are also known as vegetable oils. They're usually found in big plastic jugs in your mom's cabinet near the stove, right?
Baking supplies, yeah.
Yeah, baking supplies.
They're used in every restaurant, right?
They're used in every restaurant.
What are some examples of some?
Soybean oil is probably the most popular. Canola oil, made in Canada. That's what the CAN comes from.
Oh, Canada.
Yeah, it's actually rapeseed oil, which is a fun one to say.
What is it made of, or is it still made of soy? It just comes from
these
Canada?
are all seeds that like are like the end products of regular farming, and they used to be industrial like solvents. Like they would like press these seeds down and extract the oils out of them, and they would use them for industrial uses. So back in like the late 1800s, they started figuring out how to chemically isolate some of these seed oils and process them. I forget the actual techniques, but it was basically like in 1890s, a company figured out, we can process these seed oils down and we can get like usable fats out of them. And then they started marketing these fats to the American public, basically. And originally they had like a seed oil that was 90% like rapeseed and then 10% tallow from beef fat. So 100 years ago or 150 years ago, everybody cooked with animal fats. It was lard or tallow from beef or like other animal fats. And that's what people used in baking,
Hence,
right?
Healthier people.
And yeah, hence healthier people. Yeah, and no chronic disease, right? So these big companies realized they could take these super cheap waste products. You know, you have millions, hundreds of millions of extra seeds from the farming process that you don't need to replant. So what do you do with them? You know, you find a way to use them in some way. And this way was you press them down, you take out the little fats inside the seed. Each seed has like fats in it and like anti-nutrients that like hurt a mammal if they eat them. And then they also, I don't know, they've got some other parts of it. But the thing that we care about in these seed oils is omega-6 polyunsaturated fats. Mm-hmm. So we've all heard that you should eat lots of polyunsaturated fats, but they never really say what kinds of fats. And they basically generally say that PUFAs are better for you than saturated fat because saturated fat is like linked to cholesterol and all this stuff. I don't think any of that is true. I think it's just another marketing angle basically to make the case to eat vegetable oils instead of animals. So why do we care about PUFAs, right? PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids. What they are is we had very few of them in our evolutionary history. So probably like 1% of our total calories in our life was polyunsaturated like omega-6 oils. And there's like a little bit in animal fats. I mean, they come up, but
well, in animal fats, it just depends on what the animal's also eating. If it's eating grass, it's probably gonna have very little. Yeah. But I know that's a thing about keto and carnivore is that if you're eating, these, especially cows that are going to come from eating a lot of grain, mm-hmm. a lot of that inflammation gets passed on with the omega-6 into the meats, and you want to keep that at least 2-to-1 ratio when you're going omega-3 to omega-6, and that's where the mismatch can happen. Yeah,
so the omega-3 is usually found in animal products, and then the omega-6 is pretty much mostly found in seed oils. So basically, like when you eat it, and now people are eating 10 to 15% of their entire supply as these seed oils because it's literally in every piece of junk food that you eat. And go check the labels. Like grab the closest thing near you and look at it. And like the way I say a food is processed means it has a grain in it, a sugar in it, or a vegetable oil. And usually all three. Usually they're like the first three ingredients.
Which means they're the most of them.
Most of them, yeah. The majority of the product is these three things.
And not only, so let's say you buy something at home, buy at the store, it's going to have that. But also, correct me if I'm wrong, when you go to a restaurant, that's the high smoke point oil. So that's what they use for cooking every single thing that you cooked at a restaurant. Pretty much.
And all the fried food is cooked in like peanut oil. So there's two big issues with these oils, right? When you just eat like the actual oil itself and it's not rancid, the omega-6, it's called linoleic acid, mm-hmm. and that gets like screwed up in your metabolism, and the metabolics of it are very complicated and not easy to describe. But basically they get in there and just ruin your metabolism. And they cause a lot of inflammation, right? So they lead to increased chronic inflammation in your body. They probably raise insulin resistance. And since I found out about them, I'm way less confident that carbs are the only problem.
I've literally said, I've told him a million times, the three biggest problems, but you have sugar, and then the one no one's talking about is seed oils.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, when I first got into ketogenic, I did both at the same time. So I was like, okay, not only am I going to go ketogenic, but I'm not going to eat seed oils. It's so hard to purchase. Like, that's very hard for the average person, especially if you don't have money,
Right.
to go try to do that. Because even in places like Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, when you go to the hot bar, it's literally in all their products too, in the organic food stores that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone assumes it's pretty good for us. And so if you want to hear more about seed oils, I started a new subreddit literally 2 weeks ago called r/StopEatingSeedOils. So I want to make all these subreddits that are based on one small food product and then have them as stepping stones basically to zero carb carnivore. Stop eating sugar, stop eating fiber, stop eating processed foods, all these things. So other people you should look up, Tucker Goodrich is a really good blogger. He's just like a tech guy who got into
the one you sent over to me? Young guy, I think he's from New York as well.
No. He lives in Connecticut.
Oh, he's active YouTuber though, on carnivore.
No. He's on Twitter. He mostly posts on Twitter, and he has his own blog. But he does really good deep dives on animal studies that compare how rats are being fed vegetable oils, and he basically says these rats are dying at really highly, high rates, and
eye-popping information.
Yeah, and it's really eye-popping information, and a lot of it has been hidden. And he's a guy that cut out sugar a long time ago and still had all these problems. So then he cut out seed oils and got way healthier.
How much in there do you talk about? Is it extremely science-based? Or are you talking about how the government subsidizes the products that are behind there?
That's a huge factor.
Yeah, that's a huge factor, and it's something I need to bring more attention to. I've been mostly sticking to science because I'm just trying to wrap my mind around it. But yeah, so there's a company called ISEO, the International something edible and shortening oils or something. And they're a trade company that protects the interests of these vegetable oil manufacturers. So I want to do way more research and figure out what role have they played in nutrition science. We had trans fats banned 8 years ago, 2010, and that took a big marketing campaign from Harvard and Walter Willett. He kind of created the Mediterranean diet, but they pushed on trans fats, and now trans fats are banned, and they're the bans are rolling out around the world. But
yeah, no more. I still can't believe there's not butter.
I think these polyunsaturated fats are way worse for us, and they should be banned too. But yeah, I don't know how to run a study to prove that. I mean, I could just say look at all the people. You could do a correlation study and just look at all the people eating junk food and getting fat. But then we might just relate it to the carbs.
I got one better for you. There's a lab, a free open lab in Brooklyn, where you can go in and run your own experimentations and testing. And
well, there's a couple websites that are trying to do that idea. One is called experiment.com. You can raise money and
shared labs.
Yeah, shared labs. And I've heard of some other ones. Some guys message me sometimes. They're like, "Oh, check out my website." When I'm on Ketoscience. Let's see. So other people to follow for knowledge about seed oils is Nina Teicholz. She lives in New York City, actually, and she wrote The Big Fat Surprise, and she dedicated a whole chapter to seed oils. And she really goes through the original science that built up the saturated fat, the lipid hypothesis, or the diet heart hypothesis that said that eating saturated fat and cholesterol raised your internal cholesterol, and that caused heart disease. When really, I think it's inflammation causes heart disease. What causes inflammation? Eating sugars and seed oils. And that's what we've really changed in our diets. We eat 120 pounds of sugar a year now. Like, could you imagine eating 120 pounds as a hunter-gatherer? Like, where would you find it? Like, no one understands how, like, we have sugar beets and sugar cane, and, like, we, you know, like...
More subsidy problems, by the way.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
could also
and
be...
that's another thing, right? So, subsidies...
Could also be attributed to slavery, you know? In terms of bringing in that many people to slave or harvest that crop right there.
I was just about to say that. So, in Gary Taub's book, his latest book, The Case Against Sugar... he said that 8 out of the 12 million slaves in the New World were dedicated to sugarcane production. So a lot of like...
Brought that up to you before. We had a deep conversation about that. And it's like sugar could be attributed to slavery, especially in Brazil. Brazil was one of the big producers. And
Brazil.
A bunch in the Caribbean, a lot of the islands.
Yeah.
Because it was so laborious to go out there and chop the sugarcane and pull it out of the ground with...
And then you have to boil it. What are you going to boil it with? More wood. So you need like tons of labor. And they've imported all these slaves from Africa into the Caribbean colonies, and then they would ship the sugar up to New York and from New York down across the sea to like England and stuff. So New York has a lot of they had sugar companies here, like the Domino Company in Brooklyn.
It's that one big factory I took him to.
Yeah, it's like 2 miles away. Yeah.
He showed me that, and he's like, "This is the death of the sugar building."
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's like, it's just another thing that happened in history that no one really knows about anymore. Another really interesting fact, I just love to talk about sugar. Gary Taub's, in his book, he talked about how cigarettes became cigarettes. So originally they had cigar leaves, and or like the tobacco leaves, right? And when you have a cigar, you can't really like draw the smoke into your lungs, right?
You gotta puff and just press out.
You gotta puff,
and press
you
out.
can't really like have that much. So that smoke is alkaline, I think. But when you soak tobacco leaves in sugar, it changes the molecules in the tobacco leaf, and then when you burn it, it turns into an acidic smoke, and that smoke you can draw into your lungs. So tobacco producers figured this out in like the early 1900s, and then they started soaking all their tobacco leaves in sugar, and they kind of created cigarettes, and that became super addicting.
So now we're double addicted.
Yeah.
We're double addicted.
Yeah, so like cigarettes are like, I think one reason they're so addictive is you're sucking sugar into your lungs, right? And then like that opened up your pores, and then it could release all the carcinogens, and then you get cancer.
Sorry.
Yeah, kind of macabre, but true.
Can't even pause for effect.
A lot of like this keto battle that we're gonna be having over the next and for the rest of our lives, probably. It's gonna be fought just like the tobacco thing, which is still a big war. I mean, now tobacco companies are spreading their products to third world countries that have really bad governments that can't fight it. And now all these third world citizens are becoming addicted on cigarettes, and now they're dying.
Southeast Asia, Africa.
Exactly.
How can they get their meat hooks in? Especially what they were doing that they did a store in Kuwait, and when Vice did it, and it was on, even the fast food industry doing the same exact thing with like cigarette companies. Like, we can't really expand out here. So like, in Kuwait too, it was just obesity. There is one of the number one countries in the world that faces like obesity problems.
They have too much money to die quickly because they can just move into secondary markets where people don't have any other option, or they don't understand the science, or they don't have access to it.
Yeah, the New York Times did a good series on like obesity in third world countries, and they basically just tracked all the junk food in like Mexico and in South America and stuff, and everybody that's poor eats it like every day. And when you eat carbs, you get hungry, so you're gonna keep buying them. And
we were crazy. We were in South America for a while. Tell somebody in Colombia, say sugar's bad for you. I want you to say that to someone. There's a girl I spent time with. She's depressed and has like random, and like her meal every day is just only sugar. Like she's just eating sugar.
Azúcar es malo para ti.
Yeah, tell someone there that sugar is bad. Like, are you fighting just this crazy war? It's a crazy battle because you have a battle where we're nowhere close to even getting a chance to fighting in countries like that. Like the war starts here, but once it moves beyond here, we have decades to go before we move into other parts of the world.
Have you had plátanos maduros fritos? Fried plantains?
Yeah.
The thing is, you
Miss them?
You can't tell someone to change their heritage. Like
Yeah.
their heritage
Right,
is
right.
enshrouded in
A lot of plants.
in other
basically,
all these other countries. Yeah.
Agriculture, yeah.
Yeah,
Especially the New
agriculture,
World.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like our marketing arm is now inflicted its damage, and everyone thinks all this junk food is natural. And yeah, we're gonna be, we could maybe fix like first world countries a little bit, but man, it's gonna be a real big battle for worldwide nutrition. And
Well, I think the number one thing to get around. Let me cut this meat
you're
rack.
gonna cut your finger off.
He is.
Saw it. You have to saw it.
He's a first-time meat cutter. Yeah.
There you go.
He's masquerading as a carnivore.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the number one way I think we're gonna be able to get around it is just the cost of healthcare on the population. I do not want to pay my tax dollars because someone cannot control the way they eat, and that's going to be provided, for this person to go get diabetes medicine and go get all their insulin shots.
Yeah, but that's who you're fighting. Farm. You're fighting farm. Like they want you to have those problems. They want you to have their problems. So this is who you're fighting up. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is who we're fighting up against. Okay, fighting up against the sugar companies and all the businesses that have the major corporations with lobbying. Then you've got pharmaceutical industries who make money from not preventative care. No, not preventative care. They make money from
statins.
Reactive care. Yeah,
I'm going to start on statins.
From statins. Okay, so literally, and then who informs policy is the people who lobby and the people who have money to donate to the campaigns. And then where does the information come to the people? It comes back from the policymakers who share the information with you because the majority of people believe in the policymakers. So it's literally like a vicious circle that's really hard for me. Like, I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for what you're doing for Active Forums, because as the younger generations grow up, as they're learning to become better critical thinkers, not by way of people telling them to do that, but by way of growing up with the internet, and it's just a natural thing for them. Like, as those generations get older, they're going to find backlogs of ketoscience. They're going to get access to backlogs of zero carb and forums and people who have success stories. And 50 years ago, if someone did something like this, where does it get shared? No, they did it themselves. They were successful and they had no one to talk to about. But now
they might write a book and then maybe someone reads it.
That's best case scenario.
Yeah.
And now people can discover it for themselves. So the pushing of information on our end is way more valuable than it used to be.
Yeah, and that's social media and the internet is just incredible. Like my role as like a mod at Ketoscience, I started 10 months ago modding. I read The Case Against Sugar like a year ago and was like, oh my God, I have to like get really hard back into keto. Like, sugar's really bad. And then I started posting all these. So I would go through the R Science subreddits and look for any interesting science that kind of related to metabolism or diabetes or chronic disease or cancer or whatever. And I was like, then I would cross-post it. I would grab the link, or I would look up the entire link on Sci-Hub, which is a website that gives you like the full access to like an entire scientific article. And then I would post that to Ketoscience, and then I was like, hey, can you guys like change or like allow all my posts through, because there's a mod queue, and it means like you can't post right away. It takes time for a mod to review it and say yes, basically. So I was like, can I just do that myself? I'm like the major poster here. Like, I do most of the posting. So some guy let me in, and then I just went crazy with it. And Reddit has changed their entire website in the last year. They've added like chat rooms. They have a whole new redesigned website. And I also changed the subreddit itself to look way better. And I've gone through like 5 iterations and relearned Photoshop to like make all these banners and stuff. So it's been really fun. But my idea is like I want to document as much information about how keto might help humanity and have it there for posterity's sake. And it's a chronological, forum with, it shows when posts were made, and they're usually just links to other posts all around the internet. And the problem is there's tons of relevant science out there. I know there's probably 4 times as much that I will never get to read. And just think about it, even in English, right? Like there's probably scientific publications in like Poland and Russia and China that I'm never going to read because I can't read those languages, and they'll never get translated. And there will be probably other communities of low carb researchers out there that will never cross paths because they don't realize it. I really would like to build like a big worldwide community, have all these ketoscience like posts, and share all this information. And like if you go there and read a couple links, like I think you could become convinced to at least give it a try. The other idea of being like part of the community is like if you go post on a regular science on Reddit, you get the hive mind mentality. So you now have to debunk cholesterol and saturated fat. You have to debunk all these ideas. And
you have more, disagreeing people to fight against.
And it's very like 10th grade level like arguments about stuff. Whereas if you go to our ketoscience, like everyone mostly knows the basics, and you don't get into those fights all the time that don't go anywhere, because usually it's a case of someone just knowing a lot less than you. So it's been really nice. And I posted like 4 articles recently to our science, and one blew up, but only got like 100 upvotes, but had like 150 comments. And it was like really inflammatory because everyone was, repeating the falsehoods and being like, oh, that keto fad, like, gosh, I wish they would just shut up already. And it's just like, nobody's even talking about like the study. It was like a mouse study, like just like read it and talk about it, and nobody cares. So that's why I'm saying like, you really have to find the low carb communities. There's a ton of Facebook groups. There's YouTube channels. There's, Reddit subreddits. The other one I mod is zero-carb. I've been helping them mod. There's like 2 main moderators that do most of it. And they've been longer term carnivores than I have, like 3 to 4 years. So they we're pretty strict in basically the advice we kind of allow out there, because we know that there's a lot of bad advice that kind of gets abused or it makes us look crazy. And we kind of want to like make sure people get the right information.
What's that one podcast? Living La Vida Low Carb, or it used to be?
Yeah, Jimmy Moore.
What did they switch it over to? Something different? They changed the name.
Fasting life?
Something like that. Ketonians.
Yeah.
I mean, they have their own word, but I mean, their stuff's really great because, I mean, it's him and another doctor on there, and they're literally breaking down. Okay, so if you have this autoimmune disease, you want to do keto today, what are you going to face? What's going to be the effects of this? Should you be doing this? Especially for women, dealing with the endocrine system, I know is a real big factor for women trying to get into keto, because the the shaping and shifting of your hormones, and it just that much bigger factor. Especially women try fasting. I tell women, please be careful. Try to do keto. Be careful when you do it. It might really mess with you. I mean, it goes both ways on doing it, but don't mess with the endocrine system.
Or do, because you are messing with it with your current diet.
Well, I mean, one right there, I could jump right into it. Soy.
Yeah.
And just any soy product, especially on your hormones.
Yeah.
I've had girls dated, they drink soy and they just start crying, or they get really emotional, and it just fucks with your endocrine system and your hormones. And it affects people both ways. I mean, what's the one way it does it too? What?
I was just trying to come closer to the mic.
Oh no. I'm monitoring. I'm good.
Oh, here's our podcast mod, but as in ARE or OUR.
And it just, yeah. I don't need any soy products. And I'm momming what's on the table, but I mean, soy milk,
Lier Keith does a good job on
Get that away from me.
soy, and yeah, I'm really scared of it. We make fun of like vegans by calling them soy boys and stuff, but it's not like a fun word. But yeah, if you're like growing, male breasts, and you're not like, you don't think your diet has a role in that, like you should, be willing to change your mind.
Yes, that's how it affects men right there. You will grow breast.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point in time when I was in school, I thought that I was going to go down to Brazil and figure out a way to export soybeans and become like some soy king. I was looking at plots of land to go work on and buy. And then the moment I looked into the nutrition into soy, I was like, wait, no, we got to do the opposite here.
Can we talk about your dreams of being a soy farmer? Where did that come into play?
Yeah, that's pretty...
I was really looking up plots of land, and they were expensive. It's out in Mato Grosso in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all they have is soy there. So, well, in school, my degree was food and resource economics. I specialized in international, and they had us do a project where we had to pick a major commodity and look at markets for that commodity and exporting, and then create a product behind the exportation. So our group started out with we started by looking at what are the markets that we wanted to look at. So we were looking at Brazil and India, and in coming across those, I saw soy, and then I was like, well, I love Brazilian women, so maybe that's the place for me.
Wait until you try the Brazilian beef.
They're the number one exporter of beef in the world now, too.
I was just in Argentina, and the steak there is absolutely incredible.
I'm jealous.
Absolutely
I need to.
incredible.
I actually haven't been any farther south than Mexico.
Here's a fun fact, though. You can get a free flight to Argentina. You just got to... Whenever I explain it, and the more and more I explain it, it sounds a little fishy coming off to somebody.
Yeah.
You have to... So it's a company that...
Sounds fishy.
And
Free flights to Argentina. Well, let me. Where do I sign up?
wait
Our
till
fans are running to their computer right now.
Wait till it gets fishier. So it's a company called Grabber, and a family or an individual in Argentina will make an order purchase Amazon through this company. So the company will buy the products from Amazon here in the States, and the company the individuals in Argentina pay that company for someone to come take a flight down and carry the products of Amazon goods to Argentina. And there's certain tiers if you're willing to go, just get there and then drop it off at the company office for the other person to come pick up. You get the flight.
It's like U.S. goods that you're dropping
US goods,
off.
yeah.
That makes
so you
complete
can
sense, though.
get by the taxes. Basically.
Venezuela has that in Miami for like regular goods. Well, it's getting worse to do, but there's a whole businesses where people from Venezuela would like use Bitcoin to order food and goods and services, and they get delivered to Miami, and then someone from Miami would like rogue bring it to them in Venezuela. So there's a market for that, especially since they have products they desire,
right?
And they're willing to, and they, especially in Argentina, they have money.
It's tough,
but they do have some of the best meats in the world. You've been to Europe?
Yeah.
Okay, so France, Italy, some great meats. On Argentina, I highly recommend because they have some incredible.
Well, they have the gaucho culture.
Yes,
right? And now you got a free flight down there.
Oh, wow.
Grabber.
Yeah, Grabber.
I'll bring some iPhones down.
GARBBR. Well, you gotta be careful too. You said you can only take like $150 out of an ATM every single day. Just restrictions they have on the currency over there. It's tough.
You bring a lot. You got to bring cash down for Argentina.
Okay,
but you will get not only some incredible meats, but incredible fish. I mean, cold waters. They're.
Well, here's the problem with carnivore. You probably can't eat. What's that Colombian bacon that we love so much?
Chorizo?
No.
Colombian bacon.
Yeah, the little fat, pig fat.
Pork belly.
Chicharrón. Chicharrón, because it's in so much fat, or so much oil.
Is it?
No, but it's cooked in it's not vegetable oil. It's like.
It's probably not great oil.
Fat.
If they cook it in animal fat, great. That's why tallow is the best thing to cook with, at least in my mind.
I agree.
What's tallow?
Beef fat.
Beef fat. Remember we had the duck one? No. Do you remember the one we used to get, the epic one? The epic tallow that we would get, and we'd use that for literally everything.
You can buy duck fat at the Meat Hook.
Was that the place that was closed? Oh, the Meat Hook. But there's another Italian place across the street. I don't know if
that's Model T.
That's Model T. It's got a pig on the door, and we make the homemade salami and something on the window.
I think so.
It was right on the corner of Withers. Where we were. He looked it up and he was like, "Oh, there's some meat place. They sell
pork.
just meats."
It was called the pork shop or something along those lines. But they were closed.
I don't know them.
Literally
I mean,
right
right on Graham and Jackson.
Good move. Move to a good spot.
It is easy, this is a difficult diet, though. Let's say you live in...
Shipping everyone knows where I live.
There's a lot of places where it's difficult to eat something of this nature. Right?
All right, so yeah, let's go through like the 3 different diets you could kind of do, like cost wise, right?
Logically analyze this. All right.
So ground beef is probably the easiest thing you can eat, and that sells for what, $2 to $5 a pound, right? So I say if you're like a 150-pound man, you should eat about 2 pounds of meat a day. So just have 2 big burgers over the course of your day. You can
80,
make it
20?
like a big 80-20, maybe even the 75-25, 80-20, whatever you can find.
So much more flavor in the 80-20. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's good.
It is. Again, watch out for those omega-6, the 2-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, that's the other part, right? So, like, I think that's like the
most cost efficient, we'll say.
Well, that's the optimization, right? Yeah. But the cost efficient way, ground beef, 2 pounds a day, that's like $6 to $10 a day, right? Most people can do that. You can also get like some quarter-pound patties at McDonald's. Each one is $1 to $1.50, so you could get like 6 of them for less than $10.
So you can buy just a patty there?
Yeah, so I actually do it a lot. I post it a lot on Instagram.
McDonald's.
I go to McDonald's.
Is it real meat?
For breakfast.
I go, hey, can I get 5 quarter-pound patties? And they go, huh? And then you can say, yeah, just the patties. And then they get all confused, and then they look, and then they say, hey, can you come over and help me? And then the manager comes over, and then it becomes a whole deal. And then you're like, all right, 5 patties, just the patties. And then they like add it up, and then you say, all right, I want 5 white cheddar cheese slices. And then they get confused, and they're like, are you building a burger, or do you want like the separate ingredients or what? And I'm like, yeah, just make a burger, like put it in the platter. And then sometimes I'll add bacon, which is like another $2.
What's that come out to?
Something.
Price. They still charge you full price for the patty.
No, well, for the patty, but each patty is like $1.50. So if you get 6, that's
a lot of beef.
It's like 1.5 pounds of beef, but it's like what? I don't know, like $10 or something of beef. $8.
I'd go there for sausage, egg, and cheese. No biscuit though.
Yeah,
you can do that in the morning. How much does that cost?
Still like $2.75 or whatever it is.
Yeah, I hate that egg there, so I'll just get sausage and cheese probably.
So I got 3 sausages the other day from McDonald's, and each one was like $1.
Wow, new steal, new life hack right there.
Yeah, so you can also go to Wendy's. You can go to almost any fast food place and just ask for patties. And if you can find good burger places that like cook burgers like rare or medium rare, that's like the cream of the crop.
You're hacking. You're already teaching our audience how to hack already.
Yeah.
And Argentina has, I've said this a million times, but Argentina's McDonald's is just way better.
Yeah?
They just use the right beef. The lines are out the door. And I was told this by a few people in South America, and then I went there and I was like, wow, why is this so much better? But, keto in Argentina, McDonald's.
I was gonna
Doable.
say, what's your opinion on the way meat is cooked in terms of like rare, medium rare, well done? Because it's that red meat factor. I think he was even talking today. Some people will eat just raw meat.
Yeah, I've had raw meat a couple times. I would go to Whole Foods and buy like a little less than a pound, and then just put salt on it and eat it with a fork.
No,
I did that. I've done that like in the Whole Foods in Union Square. And I've like looked around. What?
My kind of guy.
Yeah. And like you look around and people are like eating salads and stuff, and then like you've got like this like the open thing out, and like you're eating ground beef.
No.
And you're like, what?
I mean, what's wrong with it?
Yeah.
What's wrong with it? There's no parasites. There's no, tell me what's wrong with it.
Yeah. It's beef. It's like beef tartare. I mean, a lot of people eat or sushi. I mean, like.
Beef tartare. If it's high quality, or if it's high quality, what are you What's the problem even if it's not high quality?
No, I mean, the cooking is really just to kill bacteria that may or may not be in there. But I mean,
may or may not be. But I think the chances are pretty small that there will be. And I also think your stomach is super powerful. We have scavenger stomachs. So we have the lowest pH, or one of the lowest pHs in our stomachs. It's 1 to 1.5 pH, which is super acidic. So you can like dissolve bones in your stomach.
Well, yeah, but I went to South America and I got Salmonella, Giardia, and Blastocyst hominis. So,
Okay.
So,
but they might have come from other things, right?
Oh yeah, I think it came from the chicken.
Chicken, I'm
Yeah.
not anti-chicken.
And the Giardia's from the water, but he's pretty anti-chicken.
So a lot of carnivores, what I've read is that most people stop eating chicken, or they reduce it to like one meal a week, or like a if you have to meal. Most chickens are fed soybeans and grains, so their fat profile is crazy omega-6.
Are they omnivores or carnivores?
They're omnivores, but they will like destroy a mouse. Like they're
worms, mice.
Yeah, they're super aggressive.
So we want mouse-fed chickens.
Yeah, basically, so that's what like a pasture chicken is supposed to be, like out in the grass, looking for bugs, eating all that stuff, and not like depending on like seeds and soybeans and stuff. And that's why, and so when the nutritional authorities like made red meat seem super evil because it was super high fat and stuff, Americans started eating way more white meat, which is all poultry.
Substitute, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like high in protein, it's low in fat, it seems way healthier.
The market, so obviously when the marketing starts, vegans are out there trashing red meat, and then what do people do? They go and they switch into chicken.
Yeah,
right? People
like cows more than chickens, but you need to kill way more chickens to feed yourself. I could eat like a chicken a day if I sometimes I used to go get like an entire rotisserie chicken for lunch and just eat the whole thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, one good healthy sized cow, I mean, that could feed you not just one person. I mean, that's...
Yeah, it's like 350 pounds of meat. It's
yeah, you said 2 pounds a day. I mean, that's a half a year right there.
Yeah. And
you eat less when you're in zero carb.
Right. And you only eat like 1 to 2 meals a day. I say always eat like lunch and then like dinner, and then if you have a really big meal in either one, then you can skip the other one. But like breakfast just isn't a meal to me. I really think breakfast was invented by cereal companies as like...
That makes one of us. My meal is, if I'm in ketosis, like I'm not very hungry as much, but breakfast is my meal.
You eat breakfast, dude.
Yeah, but I'm not missing breakfast.
Stop the bus.
Breakfast is my meal, no matter what.
Like, yeah, I'm just not hungry enough for breakfast, and I can just have a coffee on the way to work.
Breakfast may have been invented by the cereal companies, though.
That's a good... I can jump on that conspiracy.
Okay, you heard it here first. Breakfast was invented by the cereal companies.
Yeah. You actually don't know the true history of the Kellogg's company.
I know about the anti-masturbation, religious
the Battle
side
Creek. Battle Creek, Michigan. Cornflakes up in Michigan. And they like figured out how to like bake it the right way to like make these little clusters. And the original guy, his name was Sylvester Graham, and he was like super Christian. He was like a Seventh-day Adventist, and they were like a temperance idea, so they wanted to like reduce suffering for animals, and they thought that eating meat made you lust. It was like a sinful act. So they had all these ideas that basically made meat seem very anti-godlike, and then eating plants and grains was like the only way to be like live a holy life. So they created these ideas in like the 1880s. They had the Seventh-day Adventist church, and then the ideas spread a little bit in the community, and this woman named Ellen G. White was influenced them and did vegetarianism, and then she founded the American Nutrition and Dietetics like Association in 1917. So like a vegetarian started that, and now dietitians are like very pro plant. You know, like it's like I argue with them all the time on Twitter, and I'll like read their articles and then try and debunk them, and I'll quote them like their Twitter handles so that they come and join the fight basically. And there's huge anti-keto bias, very much like you need your fiber, you need your plants, your whole grains and your fruits and vegetables. And I'm like, why? Like I don't need any of that stuff if I have meat. And it's like, I'm not like, you know, I have access to meat. It's in the grocery store. And I guess the question, that everyone should be asking themselves is like, you have meat in the store, you could eat it, and if you are a facultative carnivore, how are you going to find out, right? You're not going to find out by continuing to listen to podcasts and all this stuff. Just try it. Like, go try the carnivore diet for a month. Try eating only meat, and you'll get the metabolic benefits from keto and the autoimmune benefits from removing inflammatory plants from your diet. So one guy that recommends you don't eat any fiber, his name is Konstantin Murnikowski or something, some really hard to pronounce Polish name. He wrote a book called Fiber Menace and thinks that fiber is like really bad for you, that it like inflames your entire gut lining, it causes diverticulitis.
Because that's interesting, because one of the big things is that fiber slows down your digestive tract when it's in there, in order to, you think that it's supposed to help with the pushing of the process of the small intestine
you can just
squeezing.
Imagine it in there like pushing everything through, but I'm just imagining it like way more of it in your body, probably like 10 pounds of crap basically in your intestines. And how do we know that's good for us? We just assume it is, or we don't really look at like what's going into people. We look at what's going out of them, and then we measure the bacteria in their stool. And I don't think that really matters that much. And
you were saying before the show about the biome, how
the microbiome. So I think that's like a fad basically. Like it's been. So we have this digestive system, right? And we're measuring the output at the very end of it, right before you take a crap. And yes, there are bacteria, and changing your diet changes the bacteria that can thrive and adapt to whatever diet you feed them. So I really think the idea of like dieting, we should talk about what goes in your mouth, not like what comes out your butt. You'll gain the metabolic benefits from keto, like when you're, absorbing fat and not sugar. And that happens in the small intestine. And by the time like this residue stuff gets to your colon, you're not really like getting any benefits out of it. Yeah, the bacteria are fermenting some fiber, some soluble fiber, creating some short chain fatty acids, but you already have the fatty acids coming out as your ketone bodies. Like ketone bodies are like an anti-inflammatory agent in your bloodstream. If you look up beta hydroxybutyrate, you'll get like all these interesting studies that like look at it and how it like reverses like damage in your body. So I think that's like it's going to be the new antioxidant, like beta hydroxybutyrate and ketone bodies.
I know we both took those for a while. I had mixed success. Mm-hmm. The one brand Keto Sports I was in love with that product.
Really?
But the rest of them, it gave me some high, but I didn't see the same sort of results that I saw on that. But it was like rocket fuel, I felt like.
Really?
Yeah, but that's sort of
that with a little MCT from Dave Asprey, the
bulletproof coffee?
Yeah, what's the one
you mean
the brain octane oil? You mix those two together.
Well, that's a speedball.
Like
You felt it?
That keto feeling in your brain where you feel like your brain is just not on fire, but it's just like
you don't feel that
glowing.
Well, I don't know. I haven't really tried that many. I've only tried the human.
Well, no, just when you're in ketosis.
Oh,
you just
yeah.
have that
No,
glow.
I have that, like constantly, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've been doing keto for so long now. It's like, I mean, like I'll cheat every once in a while, and I'll feel really crappy for a weekend, and then I'll be like, all right, that's not going to happen again. And but it's like every couple months, you know.
I know we're talking about what goes in and what goes out. How are your poops now that you're just strictly carnivore?
A lot of it matters if I have coffee. So if I have like a lot of hot coffee, sometimes it goes like straight through me and I get like diarrhea. But on the whole, I've had no digestive issues the whole last year.
Sorry, that was too funny of a pun. I can't laugh at on the whole.
On the whole? Oh, yeah.
where that's being talked
So
about.
everyone should know about Verta Health. They're a company in San Francisco, and they're on their, like in the company is Steve, Finney, he wrote the original book, The Art and Science of like low carb dieting or whatever. Really good book. And he's been studying like ketogenic diets in athletes for like 30 or 40 years. So they started this company called Verta Health, and they're basically trying to reverse diabetes using keto and basically a smartphone app that connects you to like a doctor and nutritionist that walk you through it. So instead of like going to your own doctor and having to go through keto, it's like this automated app. It helps you out. You get paired with like either a local physician who can talk to you, or
Sick.
like a telemedicine, you know, anywhere in the world. And it's like $300 or $400 a month, but people like stay on ketosis. They can ask questions. You know, a lot of these diets fail because people don't know what to do, or they get
Bad advice.
they get bad advice, or they get overwhelmed, or they have like one bad week and
They
then
don't tell the
binge
truth
for
to the doctor either,
months,
and the
yeah.
doctor can't actually
right
tell
the
you
doctor
what's
tells
wrong.
them not to
Right.
do it.
Right.
It's not that you
Or
forget
the other
that.
thing is, they try keto and then they go to their doctor and they're like, oh, your cholesterol rose. You have to get off this bad diet for you. And they're like, no. Like, we can't have that happening. So Verta Health also means that they can do really good science on this test group of subjects, right? Because they can get all their blood markers, they can see their weight, they can see their chronic disease disappear. So they released 1 year results like in March or something, and that made a big hubbub. But like no big media news outlet was saying March. Yeah, they released this Verta Health 1 year study, and they're gonna release 2 year results soon. But like 60% of their patients like reverse their type 2 diabetes, and 94% of them like completely reduce their medication use. And they're all saving like hundreds or thousands of dollars, right? Like diabetes is a super expensive disease. You need insulin. You need like 3 to 5 different drugs. You're eating carbs and then taking insulin to process the carbs that you can't even like use. It's just incredible. So Verta Health, that's really good. And I'm waiting for their 2 year results, which should be coming out kind of soon. And I'm hoping they like get way better numbers, and then we really know, like, all right, you go on keto for 2 years and like 85% of the people who stick to it like don't have diabetes anymore.
Yeah, testing's a big thing missing, and
Yeah.
a lot of I don't call them new age, but just different techniques and medicines that I just haven't looked at. We had a medical marijuana doctor on the show, and that was the thing we were most captivated by is that he's been able to test and experiment, if you want to say, on his patients. Like, okay, so he had some interesting things that he brought back to us. It was like, well, you can't just use CBD. CBD is going to wear off you over time. You need to be really mixing the CBD with the THC and terpenes to really be getting that whole effect, the medicinal effect.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is that that's kind of regulated by the government now. The state government says this is what we consider medical marijuana, which is actually better than just taking CBD. So it's like, okay, wow, now we see something there. Now we see results. We see movement in the field. And that's just for anybody, because in the end, we're just battling inflammation.
Yeah.
How do we reduce inflammation?
Right. And my argument is I think plants are more inflammatory than we think, but we don't really know. And the only way you can figure it out is trying to cut them out entirely and then see for yourself. And we didn't really get into like what's in plants, but so every plant has basically been sitting in the ground, evolving for 100, 200 million years, right? And they evolve these chemical defenses against mammals and animals trying to eat them. So these defenses are just like chemical warfare, and they create little pesticides that are trying to kill like bugs to prevent them from eating it. And we've basically assumed that all those pesticides are now good for us. And they're not pesticides we spray on the plants. They're pesticides like in the plants.
Naturally occurring. I think
naturally
like
occurring.
Ones like bananas.
Like
so
caffeine is a pesticide. That's like, like against like animals trying to eat it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's oxalates. So a big thing that causes inflammation is oxalates. They're in like spinach and kale in huge amounts. And they cause gallstones, or what are the other? Kidney stones, I think. I think they cause kidney stones. So the oxalate like builds up in your blood. You can only process like a very small amount of it. And people will eat like a ton of green veggies, end up with all these issues. This woman named Sally Norton, I think, has been pushing that oxalate angle. Then there's Dr. Georgia Ede, who is a psychologist who's been doing low carb. She actually went keto or carnivore a couple months ago and lost even more weight and felt really good. And now she's doing carnivore. So there's actually like a lot of doctors that are doing carnivore now. And it's kind of really fun. Because like I'm like doctors are following me on Twitter, and I'm like, I'm just, I read some nutrition books, and I like repost studies every now and then. But
people who compile information these days are becoming as important as the people who are creating the information.
And the other thing is like there's a doctor in the Palisades. He lost 150 pounds on keto and carnivore like for the last 3 years. He was morbidly obese, and he was a doctor, and he was doing what doctors are told to do, like eat low fat, eat lots of fruits and grains and veggies. He did all that, and he was terrible. So he figured out what made him hungry, and what made him hungry was eating carbs. So he like removed them, and then he was like way less hungry all the time, and then eventually worked his way into keto, and like I'm super proud of him. But like doctors don't know anything about nutrition. They really don't. And like I think everyone puts so much faith in their doctors that they can never be wrong. And like, oh, my doctor said I can't do keto, or my cholesterol is going up. It's like, what books have your doctor read? Like they did medical school like 20 or 40 years ago.
They specialized in
they specialized in something, and now
specific.
they've basically just been looking at patients for 40 years. They don't know anything about nutrition. And if like in 1928 people thought that you would die after 3 weeks from an all-meat diet, like nothing has changed.
Some of the people that are doing, at least from my perspective, a great job as doctors are neuroscientists.
David Perlmutter, the guy out of Florida. Yeah.
People looking at brain health and the cognitive effects, and the things that are everlasting. They want to see how can we improve humans in other ways, and how can we improve our brain health. So I even a friend of mine, a close friend from mine home, he lived with me, so he had to do keto by association. And his parents were like, "Oh, this is crazy. What are you doing?" They're an extremely wealthy family. And then the mom actually asked one of her best friends, neuroscientist from up here, well known, and he goes, "Yeah, we're working. We've been quietly working on keto. It's the thing." And then the family went from "this is bad" to "what do I got to do to get into this?" So it's interesting, but it's also interesting how people formulate their opinions, because they're formulating based on what the doctor thinks. Mm-hmm. So had that doctor not been someone who might be a little bit more rogue and willing to look into new studies, if they ask any other doctor, they're going to tell them no, and they're going to go, you're an idiot, just like everybody else is doing. So there's a lot to take in. I think you've taught me a lot today. I hope you taught a lot to Brandon. Brandon doesn't learn very well. No, I'm just kidding.
Very stubborn. Very stubborn. I read too much. But to continue on that point you just had, what was the quote you said in the beginning of the show? You said keto is really great for certain kind of diseases, or
metabolic diseases.
Metabolic diseases, and
zero carb combines the metabolic benefits with the autoimmune benefits. Anything that causes inflammation, most of it is plants.
And that's where I think that's the big thing with the brain is, those sugars that actually get up to the brain and causing inflammation. So with epilepsy, a ketogenic diet or any kind of brain disease is just like, just get the carbs, get the carbs out, get as much fat as you can in there, and it will literally heal you up. It's striking with that one. And I love the book Grain Brain. I mean, that one was a really, really big one for me to wake up.
I haven't read it, but it's Perlmutter, right?
Yeah. He's got another one coming out. And for him, he is a neuroscientist. I would say it's the thing he's got over you. But, he's also saying, hey, I'm going to eat this diet. I'm going to live this way.
There's some people who refute him pretty hard. But,
really?
Yeah, but...
What do they refute what he says?
I mean... It's more because he's a TV personality. Like he's a good marketer and a good TV personality. So when you do that, you have people who are going to sort of,
you put yourself more out there.
Use the way he puts himself out there as a negative against him. And I mean, truthfully, he is. It does, to concede to the other side, it does come across as douchey pushing an agenda, even though I agree with most of everything he says. And it's just weird. It's this tedious balance.
Or what do you not agree with what he says?
Yeah, it's going to be a tricky thing too, because as I'm becoming known in the scene, like people are offering me like discounts or try my meat supply, and then I'm going to get on a podcast and talk about zero carb, and it's like I don't really know how to handle those conflicts of interest, and I guess I'll have to figure it out.
Sit down, look at the message you find most important, and ensure to convey it. And I don't know. I mean, this is just random advice from a podcaster, but give your.
Don't discredit yourself. You own a bus too.
I mean, you've talked to a lot of interesting people.
You own a school bus.
But formulate a message and then stick with it. Like, people are going to oppose you no matter what the hell you do.
Yeah.
People are going to oppose you. You're going to have someone who's going to talk to you, and they're going to be like, well, fuck that idea or this or something. And it's just going to happen, and it's going to be inflammatory. And then if you're well versed and understand like your message and who you are, then that's the point. It's going to come like that comes across.
Right.
That comes across. That's to me, that's the most important thing. So
they're going to even tell you how to live your life. Not even tell you if your message is right or wrong.
They might even tell you how to sleep and what to dream.
Ooh.
Not us.
We can't manage that.
But I don't remember any of my dreams. Sometimes
you don't want me to get started and talk about dreams. I've had some wild ones. All right. Any last questions, Brandon?
No, I'm good on questions. What do you got? Any closing remarks? Anything you want to leave with the people?
If you don't have a Reddit account, make one. It's free. It's easy. Join. So there's like these subreddits. They're basically topics of interest, and then like communities formed by people just subscribing, and then you can see like the latest links or text posts posted, and comment and build comment chains and stuff. If you're on Facebook and you're curious about the carnivore diet, look up World Carnivore Tribe. And there's also like 10 to 20 other good like budding carnivore communities out there. One is called Zeroing In on Health, and it's been around for quite a while. The guy who runs it has been doing it for like 8 or 9 years. His name is Charles Washington. Great guy. There's another one called Principia Carnivora, run by Michael Friese. He's a guy like my age who's been doing zero carb for 8 years. So there's a lot of veterans that know a lot. And then there's like a lot of new people that have been doing keto, or they've they've known about low carb for a long time, and now they're interested. And generally, it seems like half of the people who do carnivore at least start from keto. It's pretty tough to say, yeah, like put down your Pringles and your ice cream and come eat meat
God
with
damn
us.
it's tough.
Right? And and then, like, if anything I've said today is like blowing your mind, all I've done is read books that challenge the status quo. So if you think you know something, you probably don't. And really what I've realized is I know very little. And all the things that were taught to me when I was a kid, like the nutritional lectures, the food pyramid, all that stuff was more or less wrong, and we don't really know what's best for us. I mean, maybe this carnivore diet isn't going to be the best thing. Maybe there will be problems with it, and I want to find those out. But I think you can do it for a month or a couple months, and you'll find extreme benefits. Another good website is meatheals.com. Very easy to remember, and I don't run the website, but I help like promote it, and people will post basically their stories of how they've gone on carnivore and changed all their problems. And we see a lot of digestive issues like Crohn's disease going away, IBS. Cancer is going to be a budding topic. Type 2 diabetes is very common. Most people lose 20 to 40 pounds in like the first month effortlessly. People are working out in the gym and having huge gains and having great recovery. So because that, like, there's no lactic acid in their body, they recover really fast.
I'm going to give it a 30 days.
And then, like, the other part is, like,
grind it out.
We don't really know, like, how humans evolved, like, 2 million years ago. But we know we got to this point, and we know it takes a lot of effort to be super smart, super curious, a good social communication. And those are all traits that hunters have, right? In order to think of what your prey is going to do, you have to put yourself in their minds. You got to hunt them upwind. You know they're going to run. You know they're going to go into a certain area. You could ambush them there. Most, like, big cats, they don't just use their speed and their power to kill. They stalk them. They get close. They use their cunning. They use their curiosity. I see a lot of the same traits of other carnivores and humans. It's just different. We have, our greatest weapon is our mind, right? But it's also our greatest downfall. So you get stuck in the wrong idea and you get confirmation bias and you can't change your mind. You could do the dumbest thing ever for the rest of your life and you won't even think it's wrong. But if you challenge your beliefs all the time and you're trying to prove yourself wrong, you'll try many different things and you'll find something that approximates truth. That's like what my main message is. Like, if you got, and I think most people listening to this would probably have some kind of problems that they don't even know. Like, if you'll go in carnivore and you'll realize, wow, this is what it feels to be human. This is what the human experience is.
Oh, you heard that over there? That's his favorite phrase. The human experience.
I am the human experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, just imagine us like out, like hunting as brothers, like, like building fires together and like being shoulder to shoulder, like trying to, hunt down a ruminant or whatever. Like, that's what humanity did for millions of years. And then we turned ourselves into city-dwelling cyborgs with phones in our pockets who can eat junk food and order seamless.
Half of that I'm in.
Yeah, and I mean, I love our new technology world, but the thing is, our bodies have not adapted to eating mostly plant diets. And the more you refine plants, the worse they are. So sugar is completely refined. Sugar beets or sugar cane. seed oils are completely refined seeds. Like white flour is completely refined whole grains. But my other argument is like, yes, we know the super refined stuff is really bad, but how do we know the unrefined stuff is actually good for us? And the only way is you eliminate it from your diet and you see how you feel.
Well, this was a fantastic and powerful conversation. And for those of you out there listening, by the way, you provided a lot of great information. So check the show notes because there's going to be tons of facts and resources that'll be down there. By the way, plug yourself. Plug where people can find you. You plug the subreddits, but plug where people can find you on Reddit and
Twitter as well.
On Twitter, I've become a big tweeter in like the last year. I barely use it. So my username is Travis_Statham. Not that many of us out there, but yeah, you can just put that in there.
Other Travises, get out of the way.
Yeah, all the Travises. I know of a Travis Statham who lives in Australia, and I think there's actually a bunch in Georgia. But so Travis_Statham on Twitter. You can find me indirectly if you go to the subreddits. You can find me moderating World Carnivore Tribe on Facebook. Don't necessarily friend me on Facebook. It's tough to accept stranger requests, but I'm always down to help anyone who asks. So if you message me somehow on Twitter or Reddit or I guess Facebook, like Messenger, like I'll respond and help you out.
Sure to tweet at Travis Statham.
Yeah.
_Statham.
Yeah.
Powerful words, man. And, learning that's not more about just eating red meat, but it's more of a, conscious move towards being better humans and better people, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Let's
take us home.
Let's go home. So to each and every one of you out there, first of all, thank you for coming this far. All right, we really appreciate your support. Since now that we've been skipping the intros, we are here at the end, and this is where we'll tell you how you can support our podcast. Well, what better way to do that than sharing the episode with someone you think might find this interesting, right? Sharing all the great information we provided for you. Or you can leave a 5-star review. That's going to bomb the algorithm up, get us found, get other people to find some great information. Also, thank you to our sponsors. You've got Green Roads World.
I don't know if I can use it anymore, though.
You're right. Listen, here's what we got. If you're out there and you're out there and you're looking, you're sitting at home and you're not lazy, but you want to try it, you want to get on zero carb. Here's what you do: hop on Amazon and buy yourself some meats. Ship it through the Amazon portal, right? Head on over to our website, onthebustpodcast.com. Click the Amazon portal right at the top. It'll take you to Amazon. Order whatever you need. If you're in Argentina and you're looking for $1,500 in goods, we'll fly down there with whatever you need. But in all seriousness, we appreciate your support. Continued. And Travis, thank you for coming on the show.
My recommendations for Amazon: an Instant Pot, maybe an air fryer, a good cast iron. Air fryer. Got lots of good cooking utensils that are pretty meat related that you can use in your apartment.
Shout out to Ricky Moe and the air fryer gang. You haven't air fried food before, but that's it.
I have to get an air fryer, but everyone's been
raving.